Welcome to the Untold Tales audio anthologies. Written by Dr. Jeffrey A. Robinson and narrated by Melissa Del Toro Schaffner. Billy smiled and popped the last piece of meat into his mouth. He stuffed the remaining cheese in his pocket and mumbled, "So, there are others like you?" Squatting down on the ground, Tal said,
"Yes, but not here, not on this planet. Like I said, I'm a traveler. I come from very, very far away."
Billy's jaw dropped. "You mean you're from another planet?" Squinting, Billy wondered what kind of line he was being given. "Then how did you get here?" he asked.
"I told you, I was a traveler. My people have devices that let us move from one place to another. It's called spatial translocation. My people use it to travel to different worlds on different stars across the galaxy."
Billy pursed his lips. "Then what were you doing in Africa when you were caught?" Tal sighed and lowered his head.
"Well, my race isn't the only intelligent species in the galaxy. Actually, there are many races that travel between the stars. We've used your world as a stopping point on our translocation network for thousands of years. But there are very strict rules about the interaction with other intelligent species, so this planet isn't used much, except for official business."
"Business?" said Billy.
"Yes, primarily research. Other races periodically visit and study your world, plants and animals, cultures, languages. How do you think I learned your language?"
Billy frowned. He hadn't thought of that. He thought it was natural that everyone else spoke English. The creature continued.
"Anyway, we've monitored mankind's progress for centuries. Many of us think humans have great potential. Who knows, maybe someday men will learn to travel to other stars, like my people."
"Really?" said Billy, wonder filling his eyes.
"Sure. Not in your lifetime, but someday."
Billy frowned and took another bite of food. Tal continued.
"Once, travel here was far more common than it is now. We've always tried to avoid mankind. Once, there were dozens of teleportation nodes on Earth, but the stations were shut down over the years as your civilians grew larger and your territories expanded. Now, there's only one portal still in operation, and it's hidden deep in the African jungles."
Tal shrugged.
"But even that's too close to human settlements now."
Billy furrowed his eyebrows as he considered this. "So these stations are just places you stop at as you go from one planet to another?"
"Yes, exactly. They're waystations on roads that span the stars. I'm what you might call a field supervisor. I was summoned to determine whether the last station should be moved or simply shut down."
He gestured at his surroundings.
"As you might guess, I plan to shut down the last gate as soon as I make my report."
Billy crossed his arms and furrowed his brow. "Well, I think I understand, but I'm not sure I can help. I don't think you're going to make it all the way back to Africa. I don't know how you'd get there anyway."
"Oh, I don't have to go back to Africa, Billy. All I have to do is make my way to one of the older abandoned waystations. There used to be one here in England about 2,000 years ago, back before the first Druids came here."
"Wow," said Billy. "Would it still work after so long?"
"Oh, yes," said Tull. "They're built to last a very long time."
"But how will you find this waystation?" asked Billy.
"Well, I know the approximate location. Before I was captured, I studied the old station layouts to determine if all of them should be turned off. In any case, I'll use this to find it," said Tull,
holding out a small glass sphere. Billy jerked back, looking at Tal from all sides. "Hey, where do you keep getting those things from?" he asked.
"I'm a marsupial," he replied.
"A marsupi what?" said Billy. Tal sighed and said,
"I have a pouch where I can hide things. But it's very small, and this is all I have, really."
Billy looked at the tiny orb. It was made of a clear glass and was about 2 inches across. In the center was an ornate ring of gold, which glowed brightly. "What is it? Is it magic?" he asked, poking it with a finger. Tal yanked it out of Billy's reach and said,
No, it's not magic. It's technology. Actually, it's a key. Wayfarers always have to carry one. I'll use it to activate the portal at the Waystation, and it'll help me find the location, too.
Tal put the orb into the cloth sack on his shoulder.
We'd best be going,
said Tal.
I don't want to be caught and caged again, and we only have a few hours before sunrise.
Wait, said Billy. I have a question. Why me? Tal paused.
What do you mean?
I mean, you must have seen lots of people while you were stuck in that cage. I bet you had plenty of chances to talk to others. Why'd you pick me to help you? Asked Billy. Tal crossed his arms and studied Billy.
Because you don't belong here. Like me, you're on your own, and you don't trust these people any more than I do. I watched you when you came in and decided you needed help, just like me. I could tell you were smart and quick, and that you saw more than other people do. We have much in common, you and I.
Tal raised his arms and shrugged nonchalantly.
Besides, you were here and the men from the carnival were gone, so I decided to take the chance.
As he finished talking, Tal spun around and trotted over to the lizard man's cage. He reached into the wooden box and began rummaging through its contents. He pulled out a broad-brimmed hat and put it on his head. Then he took a dirty blanket from the cage and wrapped it around him.
There,
he said.
If we travel in the dark, they may mistake me for a human child.
Striking a pose.
What do you think?
He asked. Billy stood and examined him. You're too wide, and your legs are too short. You look like someone who tried to dress a dog. He laughed. It would have to be very dark for you to be taken for a child. Tal paced back and forth a few steps. He arched his back and practiced swinging his arms.
Let's go then. Maybe we can make it out of the city before it gets light outside.
Tal slammed the lid of the wooden box shut, and the colored birds in the next cage burst into the air at the sound. They all started shrieking at once. Billy and Tal stared briefly at one another. Then they bolted and dashed for the entrance. As they ducked under the lowest tie of the canvas flap and ran into the night, they heard shouting rise up behind them. The screaming birds woke the other animals and the nearby sideshow workers. As others arrived to investigate, Billy and Tal vanished together into the dark London streets. The approaching dawn transformed the dark night. The thick morning fog diffused the emerging light so that Billy and Tal saw each other as featureless black silhouettes against an endless sea of gray.
Where are we?
Asked Tal.
Are we almost out of the city?
We're still in the city proper, answered Billy. Outside still a long ways off. We're barely outside of the city center. Their progress had been slow. Billy had led them through a maze of back streets, avoiding lights and people. For several hours they'd moved through the darkness by dashing from one set of shadows to the next. The problem was that Tal's short legs didn't let him run very quickly.
It'll be light soon,
said Tal.
We'll have to find some place to hide or they'll capture me again.
Billy looked around and pointed. Over there. We'll hide in that alley. Hurrying over, they found the alley was a dead end. There was garbage piled up along the back wall, and the place reeked from the smell of raw sewage where people emptied chamber pots. Hey, a cot, whispered Billy, pulling on the handle of a short, two-wheeled carryall. This will be perfect. We can get you out of the city in this. Then he saw the cart was missing a wheel and understood why it had been thrown away. Well, maybe not, he added. He let go of the cart, which crashed back onto the pile of debris. Tal peeked around the corner near the alley entrance and motioned for Billy to come over. When he got close, Tal whispered,
Billy, what's that building over there? The one with the 3 balls above the door and all the stuff in the window.
Oh, that's a pawn shop, answered Billy. It's where you can hawk things.
Could you sell one of those gems there?
Asked Tal. Maybe, he said, scratching his head. Most likely they'll think I stole it and try to take it from me. Tal thought.
All right, try this. Show them one gem and tell them you can get more. Then ask them what they'll give you for it. When they name a price, take the gem back and tell them you'll sell it at another shop down the street. Then start to leave. They'll give you a better price then.
Billy thought about it and nodded. Okay, but if they try to nab me, I'll run and meet you back here later. They huddled together in the back of the alley until it was lighter, and the shops started to open. Then Billy buried Tull under the trash to hide him, covering him completely in garbage before he went over to the pawnshop. Billy did as he'd been told. He didn't think it would work, but it succeeded just like Tull had said. He ran back to the alley and hollered, "Tull, you'll never believe what I got!" When he rounded the corner, Billy saw a pack of dogs surrounding the pile of trash in the alley. The dogs barked and snarled. One tugged at something in the pile and tried to pull it free. Billy backed away. He'd considered taking on one dog, even if it was bigger than him, but 3 was too many. There was a muffled curse and a trash pile kicked one of the dogs. All 3 advanced menacingly when there was a sudden flash of light. Before Billy could react, the 3 dogs ran out of the alley, one yelping loudly in pain. Billy approached slowly and Tull peeked out.
"It's about time you got back," he said. "I thought I was going to be eaten again."
He struggled to sit up and face Billy. "What did you do?" asked Billy. "I mean, to the dogs."
"I used the key,"
Tull replied.
"It has a powerful energy charge and can generate a strong electrical charge."
"You mean you can shoot lightning bolts?" asked Billy in amazement. "With that orb of magic gold?"
"Yes, I mean no,"
said Tull.
"I told you it's not magic, it's science. Besides, if I do that again, I won't have enough power left to open the gate. And it's not gold. It's a superconductor that sustains a high electric current and generates a magnetic field that—"
Billy stood with a blank expression on his face and his jaw slightly open. He obviously didn't understand any of the words Tull was using.
"Never mind,"
said Tull. He stood awkwardly and brushed himself off.
"Say, did you get any money?"
Billy had almost forgotten. He held out his hands and displayed some coins. "They gave me almost 10 pounds for the gem. It worked just like you said. What should we do now?"
"It's a shame,"
said Tull.
"That gem was worth nearly 100 times what they gave you. I've been thinking while you were gone. Here's my plan. I'll wait here while you go to the nearest stables and rent a coach. Tell the person in charge that your father sent money to rent a carriage to take you and your little brother to Salisbury. If I remember, it's about 50 miles from London. Make sure it's a closed carriage. Then come back here and get me."
"Okay, but why are we going to Salisbury?" asked Billy.
"Because it's the nearest we can get to Stonehenge,"
Tull replied. Once more, Billy took off and did as Tull instructed. Within the hour, Billy came back with a tall, black, handsome cab. The driver sat behind the cab of the small, 2-wheeled carriage, and the horse danced nervously as Billy got out. Billy made the driver park the cab and sent him with a few silver coins to get some food for the trip, while Billy supposedly fetched his little brother. While the driver was gone, Billy smuggled Tull into the closed cab. Together, they rode out of London in style. Both passengers fell asleep. The driver stopped at an inn later that afternoon to water his horse and woke Billy to give him some food. Billy told the driver that his brother, who was huddled in blankets, was ill and needed sleep. The driver resumed his journey, while Billy and Tull devoured the first fresh meal either of them had had in a long time. It was late evening when the carriage finally arrived at the Salisbury Inn. Billy gave the driver a few more coins to arrange for lodging, and they both slipped out of the carriage while the driver was gone. Without attracting any notice, they disappeared into the English countryside. Billy was worried that the driver or the innkeeper would look for them when they noticed their disappearance. Tull reassured Billy that no one would look for them. The driver and innkeeper had their money, and neither of them would lose any sleep over 2 unknown children. Tull suggested to Billy that, after he'd gone through the gate, Billy should come back and take advantage of the lodgings they'd just purchased. As they walked across the moonlit woodlands, Tal periodically checked his orb and pointed out the direction they needed to go. After a while, Billy pulled on Tal's blanket to make him stop. He pointed at large standing stones far off to their left. "Is that Stonehenge?" asked Billy.
Yes, but we need to go over there,
said Tal, pointing at a nearby hill. "But didn't you say your people built Stonehenge?"
No, said Tal. Stonehenge was built by humans, centuries after we shut down the station. Long after we left, stories continued to be told about the place, about strange lights and odd-looking creatures. Humans thought it was a magical place and built those structures there.
"But if that isn't where the Waystation is, why did they put the stones there?" asked Billy. Tal laughed and said,
"Probably because it's easier to build where the ground is flat. Actually, they probably may have never known the exact location of the Waystation. After we were gone, the whole region became sacred to the Druids."
They got to the foot of the hill and began to climb. Tal glanced at Billy and asked,
"Do you have any family, Billy?"
"Nah, not really," he replied. "My pa was a seaman and I never met him. My ma died of the cough. For a while I stayed with my aunt and she was nice, but the third time I got beat by my uncle when he got drunk, I ran off. I've been on my own ever since. Sometimes things get a bit tough between the new factories grabbing kids to make 'em work and street gangs that'll kill you if you don't join 'em. But I manage. And I'll never go back where someone can just beat me for just being there." Tal didn't reply. Billy grew quiet and bit his lip as he tried to remember his mother's face. They finished their walk in silence and were soon standing on a hill overlooking the plain and the distant ring of stones. Billy looked around and said, "So, where's this Waystation of yours? I don't see anything but grass."
"You're standing on it,"
said Tal.
"The hill is the Waystation. It was built to cover the energy transformers that power the portal."
"Power?" said Billy. "Like magic?"
"No. The portal is powered by a geothermal tap that converts heat into electricity. The electricity then energizes a grid of..."
Tal stopped and then sighed deeply.
"No, Billy. It's not like magic. Like I told you, it's science. It's just science your people haven't learned yet. While the universe seems wondrous and magical, everything really comes down to physics and chemistry and mathematics. The power here is natural, not magic. It powers the portal."
"You mean like power the steam engines they use in the new factories?"
"Yes, that's right,"
said Tal.
"Power like you get from steam. Here, let me show you."
Tal pulled out the orb and twisted it in his hands. There was a bright flash of light, and Billy shielded his eyes. When he opened them, there was a large blue glow at the top of the hill. It hurt his eyes when he looked at it. He raised his arm to ward off the light and backed away in fear.
"That's the portal,"
said Tal.
"It's a doorway to another world. When I enter it, the doorway will close behind me and will never open again. The key's power is gone, and there isn't another anywhere on Earth."
Billy looked at the first portal and then at his strange furry friend. Finally, he looked behind him at the dark, cold night. "Can I come with you?" he asked.
"No, Billy,"
said Tal.
"This is your world, and this is where you belong. There aren't any humans where I'm going, and despite how much you'd like to go, you'd eventually need the company of your own kind."
Tal walked over and gave Billy a long, gentle hug. Billy sniffed and asked, "But what will I do now?"
"Billy, you're a survivor. If you could make it on London streets at your age, you can make it anywhere. Use those last 2 gems carefully and don't waste the money. Also, take this and wait until you're older before you try to sell it."
Tal threw him the glass orb.
"Others will try to cheat you if you try to sell it now."
Billy looked at the orb and the tiny ring of gold inside it. It now no longer glowed and was dull and cold. "This?" asked Billy. This gold isn't as much as the coins I had this morning. What's so valuable about a glass orb with a ring in it? Tal walked to the gate and laughed.
It's not the ring that's valuable, Billy. Besides, it's not gold anyway.
He shouted and he waved goodbye.
What's valuable is the orb. It's not made of glass. It's made of crystallized carbon. The orb is a diamond, a uniquely valuable one. When you're older, find a gem cutter who will cut it into smaller stones, then sell them one at a time. Buy yourself an education and make something of your life. Keep asking questions, Billy, and you'll always find new answers. And remember, magic is just science you don't understand yet.
Billy stared in awe at the tiny sphere in his hands. When he thought of it as a diamond, it didn't seem all that tiny anymore. His mind reeled when he tried to figure out what it was worth, and he started to imagine all the things such money could buy. So entranced was he with the fortune in his hands, he didn't notice Tal disappear through the gate. There was a rush of wind and the blue light disappeared. Billy stood for a long time, looking at the empty hilltop, and then he walked back downhill toward the inn at Salisbury. As he passed the huge ring of stones, he laughed again at the things some people convinced themselves to believe. Holding the orb in his pocket like a magic charm, Billy returned to his own world, which would never seem the same again. Thank you for listening. We love our listeners, fans, and patrons. If you loved what you heard, please like and subscribe to our audio anthology, and consider visiting our Patreon site at www.patreon.com/Melissa Del Toro voiceover. If you'd like to read more of the stories in the Untold Tales series, not narrated here on our podcast, you can find Jeff's books on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. The links for all of this information are conveniently listed in this episode's show notes. Thank you and have a wonderful day.